Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Webinar Wednesday, where we share best practices and success stories for STEM, technical education, and workforce training. My name is Melissa Martin. I am with ATS Lab Midwest, and today I'm your host for Webinar Wednesday. Now, if you're new to us, you picked the absolute perfect week to join us for Webinar Wednesday because this week we are sharing the best of Webinar Wednesday. And for those of you who have been around for a while, you're going to get to potentially see some things you've seen before, but you're going to get a refresher on some of the best moments that we've had. And if you haven't made it to every single one of our webinars, I think this is going to give you some great insights and little snippets to kind of inspire you, get you motivated to watch more, and just give you some great ideas to take into your own programs. Now, speaking of that, for context for everybody on today's webinar, we have been doing Webinar Wednesday every single week for about 20 months now. So we started this project in March of 2020 when COVID hit and the world shut down. And we kind of started this project as a way to share best practices, kind of get people onto the same page who are maybe trying to adapt and pivot their education strategies when COVID hit, and kind of share new ways of learning and teaching when everyone had to go remote. And since then, it's kind of morphed into this space where we share just incredible stories of people from all over the Midwest, from all over the country, who are doing really cool things in STEM programs, in technical education programs at K-12 levels, at the technical and community colleges, in universities. We brought on industrial employers, and we're just kind of sharing insights and strategies. And we've had dozens of guests on over the last 20 months who have shared their insights. And we've had thousands of people join us for our webinars. And they've been able to take some of these insights and kind of bring them back to their own programs and take some of these ideas and put them into their strategies as they start to think about and plan for the future of their programs. So it's been just an incredibly rewarding project for our team. We've learned a ton from our guests. We know that our audience has learned a ton as well. We're just so grateful to all of our guests who have been on and been willing to share their insights with our audience over the past 20 months. And of course, many thanks goes to our own team for helping to make this happen week in and week out. And finally, many thanks to our attendees, who some of you we see every single week, and we love to see you here. And for those who are maybe new to us, we love meeting new people and sharing insights with as many people as we possibly can, because it makes us all better teachers, better leaders, better employers. So today we are sharing the top 10 moments from Webinar Wednesday. And you know, when you have 85 plus episodes to go through, it's really hard to pick your favorite episodes and your favorite moments. So here's what we did for this episode. We kind of looked at those 85 plus episodes and we grouped them into 10 kind of baskets of different themes, different types of episodes that we would do kind of on a regular basis. And from each of those, we picked our very favorite episode, and we featured a really fun clip from each of those. So without further ado, we're going to get started on our list of top 10 moments from Webinar Wednesday. We'll start with number 10. And the theme for number 10 is new technology. We had a ton of episodes on new technology because, as we all know, technology is advancing at just an incredibly rapid rate. And education has quite the job to keep up with what's trending in the world of industry and make sure that their students are properly prepared to go into the workforce and work in these really high-tech fields. And so there's just incredible companies all across the US who are innovating, who are developing technical training systems, learning systems, curriculum, so that these schools are able to keep up with the pace of industry. And so we have brought on these companies to talk about, I mean, the amount of technologies that we have seen in the last 2 years has been amazing. The SkillBoss logistics and automated system for teaching automated supply chain. We've brought on people to talk about VR and AR for safety training, for welding, simulated technologies, 3D scanning technologies, automated mobile robots, all sorts of stuff. But the one that we have picked as our very top is a little bit different than the rest. So a lot of these are on hands-on, really technical industrial technology. And our top episode for new technology is actually mastery coding. So mastery coding is all computer science and coding. And the reason that we chose this is we're seeing just this huge convergence of computer science and hands-on industrial technology. Every job, every sector, every industry is being so impacted by computer science that students who have a foundational knowledge of basic coding of computer science are going to be worth their weight in gold in any fields they choose to go into. And so mastery coding and this kind of curriculum can be such a benefit for our really hands-on traditional CTE students, but it can also pull in all of our students who love to create their own apps, or our gamers, or our esports students, and kind of build a bridge from them into this whole world of CTE, advanced manufacturing, et cetera. So here's a clip from Mastery Coding CEO Alan Sitomer talking about how coding is totally revolutionizing the world in every sector.
We're talking about like working for Tesla, or right, we're talking about like working for Riot Games, or we're talking about I mean, it doesn't matter that there's no field that isn't being wildly transformed by technology. For example, I was speaking at a conference, and I think it was at the University of Michigan's dental school was prototyping, I guess to have a tooth, extracted and then replaced type of thing. That the old school way was they had, 25 teeth, and they would kind of measure up and eyeball it, this and that, and then look at the gap, and then they'd hammer it in, and then they'd saw it off, right? And then you'd spend 3, 5, 7 days in pain having an implant done. Now they take an electric scan of your mouth, and they 3D print something that down to the micromillimeter fits perfectly, and it gets inserted. I mean, it literally, that's what we're talking about. Wherever you have an interest in doing anything, if you own the technology skills, you will be able to find a hybrid opportunity. You're not just going to be chained behind a desk grinding code, unless you want to be, because if you want to be, those jobs are available. But if you don't feel like you need that mix and this and that, plenty of opportunities across industries of all spectrums exist.
Healthcare, distribution, warehousing, manufacturing, retail, hospitality, it's literally every corner of our economy, great opportunities that can be had for individuals with amazing skills in the areas of computer science.
And that leads us kind of really well into our next section here, which is all on industrial training. And the reason that this segues really well is because we, for our favorite episode on the industrial training side, brought in industrial employers and asked them about what is happening in their facilities when it comes to Industry 4.0 and how they're training their employees to be ready for this technology. So we had on people from Sargento and Ashley Furniture and Harley Davidson and Greenheck Fan Corporation, some of these really, really well-known manufacturing companies. One of them was Kohler Company, who you probably have their bathroom fixture generators. They're also huge in hospitality. I mean, they're everywhere. But Kohler Company has realized that their IT people need to understand operations technology in order for their company to move forward with Industry 4.0. So when we had this panel, we asked each of these companies to speak a little bit about what's going on. And Jim Moulter from Kohler Company had some fascinating insights into the worlds of IT and OT.
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, I'm kind of the sore thumb that I stick out today because I'm the IT guy and amongst a bunch of manufacturing people. But back in July, they formed the Smart Factory Deployment Team, who I'm fortunate to be the manager for. And I had come from a career of IT, so old school IT. My team, a lot of them came from business background, but have been in IT a long time. So I reached out to Matt last summer and told him about the team that I'm forming. and said, we're gonna have a lot more touches of OT in the future. And so I asked for help setting up a curriculum that we called OT for IT professionals. I had my new team go through that, and it was so popular that we opened it up to the rest of IT. So a lot of hardcore IT, like the infrastructure and security people, have taken part in the training as well. So historically, in my experience, IT and OT, we very seldom interacted. We were so busy standing up ERP systems that we didn't reach out to the shop floor very often. Our infrastructure guys were worried about the data center and the desktops to keep running and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the OT guys were worried about keeping the plant floor running, and they didn't spend time worrying about us. I4O is forcing us, not even encouraging us, but forcing us to break down those silos and start to learn to work together. And the first step in that was for us to start to speak OT's language, and that was the training that we forced our people to go through, or encourage our people to go, shouldn't say forced. IT is really good at some stuff like governance and security and things like that. As OT starts to play a more mission critical role on the manufacturing floor, we can't ignore the governance and the security aspect of OT systems anymore. And anybody that watches the news and doesn't think OT security is important just isn't paying attention. You think of two circles with one being IT and one being OT. As OT systems start to become more IT-like, they shift one direction, and as IT systems start to have products that are more interest to the shop floor, we start to shift that circle. So now we have a Venn diagram. There's overlap now. I expect that overlap to continue. One time I read a quote that said, today there's OT and tomorrow there's IT, and tomorrow there'll be just BT. And I think that's really where we're headed, is that there's not going to be a distinction anymore.
That's fascinating thoughts, isn't that? And just a great episode. I encourage you to check that one out. And his little quote there that he presented really speaks well into our next set of episodes that we had on Webinar Wednesday, where we had a whole series on predictions. You know, we talked about disruptions that are coming to higher education. We predicted back when COVID started what education would look like that fall. We've talked about what the future looks like, what comes after Industry 4.0. We've talked about the future for new energy, alternative energy for electronics programs, as we're seeing all these supply chain disruptions. So tons and tons of predictions that we've shared. Go check those out, see how accurate you think we are. Perhaps our favorite prediction episode, and the one that gets number 8 for our top moments in Webinar Wednesday history, is our 11 predictions for industrial artificial intelligence and how industrial AI is going to totally transform the world of advanced manufacturing. Here are some thoughts from our regular host and president, Matt Kirkner. And as a reminder, Matt spent 23 plus years running manufacturing companies during that age where continuous improvement, Kaizen, and lean manufacturing were coming into manufacturing for the first time. And he saw what happened when companies embraced those and what happened when companies didn't. So that's kind of where his basis was. And here's what he had to say about industrial AI.
So here we are today in the year 2021. And I would say that the same sequence is happening because we have industrial companies that are investing in smart technology. We have industrial companies that see the huge sea change that artificial technology, artificial intelligence will bring to the world of manufacturing. And those companies are the ones, mark my words, that in the next 10 years will gap everybody else. And as I talk to large companies, large OEMs, Fortune 500 companies, they see this change coming. They are making huge investments in artificial intelligence. They are making huge investments in Industry 4.0 and smart technology. But as we talk to small to medium-sized manufacturers, a lot of them are shrugging their shoulders and saying, we just don't see it in our business. I will tell you today that they are doing that at their own peril because this freight train is coming down the track. And the question is whether or not we see it soon enough to adjust our business models to be able to take advantage of what AI and smart technology bring us. So this afternoon, I want to talk about predictions of how industrial artificial intelligence will totally change the world of manufacturing in the next 10 years.
And if you want to hear what those 11 predictions are, you'll have to go back and watch that episode. Matt has some really fantastic ideas. There's also an article on our website that lays it out if you would prefer to read it. Number 7 on our list of top moments from Webinar Wednesday history, we had a whole series on student stories. So I think perhaps our favorite episode from this one, we actually brought on students to be our guest speakers. So these 3 young gentlemen here standing to the right of that FANUC robots, they're currently college students, but they were high school students at Plymouth High School, and they took some courses in industrial robotics. They got second place at the 2019 Team Robotics competition. They spent a ton of time outside of class learning how to program this robot, taking extra time to learn all the ins and the outs. What was fascinating about their story is that even though they were CTE students, all 3 of them went on to 4-year universities. And 2 of them went to engineering programs, and 1 is in a computer science program currently. Big hopes and dreams for these students. I know that they'll be able to achieve those because they're bright, they're hardworking, they're talented individuals. But they shared with us in this episode how taking courses in technical education in industrial robotics totally impacted their university experience and how it compared to the rest of the students in their courses in college who maybe didn't take any CTE courses while they were in high school. So here's what they had to say.
The thing at college that most surprised me was how ahead I was of everybody else. Going to a small school with, not a ton of resources, I had so much more hands-on experience with CNC machines, with welding, with the robot, all these things that are incorporated into a lot of our coursework at the university, but are also things that I already knew. So that gave me, I would say, at least almost a year of educational advantage over a lot of my fellow freshman classmates who came in with a lot of basic AP classes and non-hands-on classes that didn't apply so much to an actual manufacturing setting.
Yeah, to echo what Kyle said, I think I was the only one in all of my engineering classes that had ever even touched an industrial robot, let alone like a CNC machine, which is something that at Plymouth High School and other high schools like it, we take kind of for granted that we have access to these machines. And like Kyle said, going into university, this gave me a distinct advantage over people who needed to not only learn the fundamental skills, the math and the science and the physics behind everything, but also how to make it work in a practical setting.
I would also say it really helped going into career fairs and trying to get an internship, having this experience, because colleges, it's like this for computer science, and I'm pretty sure it's like this for mostly every major. They focus really heavy on the theory and really close to all the math and everything, try to get you to understand that. It's not necessarily what employers want, though. It's very important, but they really like having the actual practical experience, working through problems and trying to figure them out when you're more on your own than having the entire problem set up for you.
I think we're seeing more of that in the future, more students who are interested in pursuing a 4-year engineering pathway, taking hands-on CTE courses while they're still in high school. And speaking of innovation, we have a whole bunch of episodes we did during Webinar Wednesday that focused on teaching innovation. So we brought on people who were disruptors in a positive way, who were, kind of breaking the traditional model of how we teach students certain things. And we brought them on to share some of their ideas. The episode that stands out that gets number 6 on our top 10 moments for Webinar Wednesday is our friend Kevin Barnes from Kellogg Community College in Michigan, and his program that focuses on self-directed learning. Now, they've actually been doing this for decades now, but I think the idea is going to be really, really relevant to higher education moving forward. They have perfected the model. As he mentions, it's certainly not right for everybody, but it is an incredible model that I think reaches students' needs in the future. And so hear what Kevin has to say about how their program works. It's really, really innovative.
We started back in 1990 with the model of a totally open entry, open exit, competency-based instructional program. And basically what that means is we do not have any dedicated lectures. We don't per se have any dedicated lab times. We're set up so that you can begin our programs at any time throughout the semester. You don't have to sign up for a full 3-credit course. You can sign up for smaller, what we call modules. And the best way I can describe a module is we take the content out of, say, 2 possible class sessions, and we'll package it into a self-directed packet. And so what that allows us to do, especially with our location, we're right out in the middle of our industrial park in Battle Creek, Michigan. We are not on the main campus. So with us being out there ready to serve our industrial clients, it allows us to actually customize a program. Probably the best analogy I can use for that would be the salad bar at Golden Corral. With that, if an employer, if a employee, if a student needs certain skill sets, they can sign up for certain amounts of content that's going to specifically meet their needs. We've been doing this since 1990. It's worked out very well for us. It's not the answer to everything, but for our market and for what we're trying to do with the content we're trying to provide, it does a very nice job.
The reason that works and the reason that the Kellogg team has done this is because they want to build really strong partnerships with their local employers. And so we had a whole series of webinars that really focused on industry education partnerships. There is a trend in education now that is looking towards their employers and asking them, hey, what do our students need to learn? What skills and competencies are you looking for in your workforce? What kind of technologies should we be teaching our students? And so we had a lot of guests on to talk about these kinds of partnerships, and we shared a lot of best practices for how to develop strong relationships between education and industry. And our favorite episode, which wins number 5 of our top 10 moments in Webinar Wednesday history, is the Ignite Learning Lab at the LIFT facility in Detroit, which is just this incredible collaboration of industry partners, of governments, and of high schools coming together and learning and innovating all in the same building. So Marianne Donahue, who is the instructor over at the LIFT Learning Lab, explains how this facility works, who the partners are, and how the learning takes place amongst all of that industry innovation.
Overall, LIFT is a research and design institute in Detroit for the manufacturing industry, with over 200 members and partners who are cutting edge and innovative in the manufacturing industry. You're looking at now the main floor of LIFT, which is our high bay area, which is utilized by our partners and members for their research and testing. Housed above on the second floor, which I think we'll get to soon, second floor of LIFT is an immersive advanced manufacturing learning laboratory, which is considered our LIFT Learning Lab. The LIFT Learning Lab has windows allowing students to look out onto the high bay. The Learning Lab focuses on building a talent pipeline of manufacturing technicians. And given this unique setup with the windows, with the lab upstairs, and being within a facility that does industry research and design, is the perfect setup. Students can look out of the lab and directly see what they're learning at LIFT and using the Ignite curriculum, see how it applies directly to industry. The LIFT Learning Lab consists of 7 different labs. There's a virtual reality computer lab, which is capable of supporting the e-learning parts of Ignite, along with some virtual reality concepts and trainings. Then we also have an area with all of the Amatral training equipment for students to complete their skill applications on out of Ignite. We also have an open, flexible lab for students to work in groups on their projects or have career discussions with companies. Our members do enjoy working with the students. We have a material science lab, a CNC operations training center, and a welding training center. We are also in process of adding a smart factory lab, which will focus on teaching digital twin and smart factory concepts. You can see right there, we had students in visiting the lab touring doing some activities. The Lift Learning Lab provides learning opportunities for an entire continuum of talent development, including students and teachers, faculty from K-12 to community and technical colleges, to university and graduate degrees programs, and incumbent workers in small, medium, and global enterprises.
This is a great case study in how to build that collaboration between education and industry. And speaking of how to, our next set of webinars focused on how-tos. So we had just a whole bunch of episodes like how to teach artificial intelligence, how to teach Industry 4.0 to middle schoolers, how to teach process control, how to build a world-class apprenticeship program at your technical college, all sorts of really great episodes. The one that stands out and earns our number 4 spot on our top 10 episodes of Webinar Wednesday are our Tech Ed Grants webinar. So we brought on 2 instructors who have just been incredible at securing grant funds for their CTE programs. And basically they joined us for a half hour to share all of their secrets. And we just asked them how they do it, what grants they apply for, how to write a winning grant application, who you bring in to help you, all that sort of stuff. So they shared everything that you need to know in order to win CTE grant money. And we all know that there's a lot of funding available to education right now, lots of grants out there. So this is going to be a great episode to check out if you want to secure some of the funding that's out there. One of the snippets we're going to show you, Kelly Kwiatkowski from the New Berlin School District shares a little bit about how they go about choosing which grants they apply for.
So I think a best practice is just including yourself in any listservs, conversations in the region, talking to business partners. That helps you find grants. We always look at grants through a lens. Does it align with our strategic plan and where we're going? So if we know where we want to go in the end, we evaluate that grant through those lens. For example, if we have a need to develop out our manufacturing pathway like we did, we're going to look for grants that specifically cater to that area or pathway. I think what's also important is knowing how much you have to spend for a match and how much your Board of Education or your superintendent or your director or principal will allow you to spend. So you don't want to spend a lot of time, hours and hours or days on days applying for a grant where you don't have that funding. So knowing that on the front end, I think helps you identify grants that'll work for you and your district.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Kelly did share is utilizing certifications as a self-funding mechanism, because a lot of states have funding opportunities, grants. So if a student earns an industry recognized approved certification, the state will actually reward that school with a certain dollar amount per student per certification. So you can use certifications as a self-funding mechanism for your CTE program. And that is the topic of our number 3 on our top 10 moments here from Webinar Wednesday. We had a whole bunch of episodes focusing on emerging and just the best certifications out there that are industry recognized, third party. And the one that stood out the most that wins spot number 3 here is the Smart Automation Certification Alliance, talking about micro-credentials. Micro-credentials are in huge demand today because of their stackability, because of how portable they are, because of how targeted they are with very, very specific skill sets that I think that is incredibly important to employers. So Executive Director of SACA, Jim Wall, joined us. And in this clip, he's going to talk about why they chose to get into micro-credentials. And I think it's fascinating because it's not because SACA chose to do it, but it's because the industrial employers urged them to create micro-credentials.
In our world, a micro-credential really came from our first technical work group, which are industry experts that we empaneled to help develop the SACA standards and then certifications. And in the very first meeting, a number of the industry leaders discussed that how useful it would be if we could develop this system that was very modular in nature, and decided that as a rule of thumb, if we could break things down into competency areas that someone could be trained on and go through a certification program in roughly 40 hours or less, that really was a sweet spot in the industry. You know, they said over and over again, you know, it's going to be much easier for us to send people for training for a week at a time and have them get the certification versus having to enroll in a program for, you know, a full semester or even sometimes like a 2-year program. You know, that really doesn't work real well in industry. So we use the term micro-credentials to sort of define that small credential that doesn't cover the whole occupation, but covers parts of it. And then those micro-credentials can be stacked together in many different ways, depending on the person's career path and what industry they're in.
I'm going to hold on to that one word Jim said towards the end, and that was pathways. We had a ton of episodes of Webinar Wednesday that focused on different strategies for career pathways, more on-ramps, more off-ramps for students and incumbent employees to continue their education pathway and lifelong learning. Certifications and micro-credentials are certainly one of those strategies for lifelong learning pathways. But the one pathway we want to focus on that earns our spot number 2 for our top 10 moments in Webinar Wednesday history is the episode we did with Joshua Johnson, who was at the time, the director of the state apprenticeship program for the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. And we talked all about apprenticeships as a pathway. Now, we all know apprenticeships do make a great pathway for careers for people to be able to get that training, get that on-the-job training, get that journey worker card, and then make a great career out of it. What was really, really unique with Josh's approach is that he looked at apprenticeship as just one part of someone's journey in their career. And he looked at apprenticeship as a method for entrepreneurship and business ownership. So let's hear what he had to say.
I didn't know I wanted to be a laborer for 40 years, but I knew I wanted to do something with my hands. What I'm trying to do now with apprenticeship is to make it where if you want to stay that laborer for 40 or 50 years, fantastic, you can do it. But also if you decide, hey, I want to go and pursue a different career, or I have other interests and this was great that I did this, I want to now create the opportunity for you to have those transferable skills embedded in your apprenticeship program to help support you to go into those other areas. We also look at it from the diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint. One of our biggest challenge that we face is continuing to get diversity and inclusion within apprenticeship. Yeah. Right. We try to find and try to educate our community and try to get individuals involved and understanding the value and the quality of an apprenticeship program. Well, that begins with business owners. Most business owners were former apprentices. So individuals in construction, individuals in manufacturing, they served an apprenticeship at some point. So if I can continue to diversify the apprentices, the apprentice participation, but then also letting them know that, you know, I've heard people say they want to be a carpenter because they want to remodel houses. I just want to rehab houses. I'm like, okay, that's great, but you can do that on the side. What about becoming a carpenter journey worker and then starting your own carpenter company? Yeah. Where you're doing you're a DBE, or, you know, or you're a general contractor, and then you could still do what you love on the side. But having those transferable skills, I think, are huge, and really outlining that and making it seen as part of that apprenticeship. It creates a little prestige for those individuals coming in, but also creates support, because now it's saying, if you come in as an apprentice laborer, one day you can have a company that is bidding on heavy highway contracts or building contracts, if that's what you want to do.
And Joshua, by the way, has just an incredible story. As he mentioned, he himself went through an apprenticeship program. After actually having been incarcerated for a decade of his life, he came out, he went through an apprenticeship program. He did construction, and then he became the state director of apprenticeships for the entire state of Wisconsin. And now he is working at a national nonprofit. So just an incredible career pathway for him, and just an incredible leader and a role model. I would highly encourage you to check out that full episode. Now, it was hard to choose a top moment from all of Webinar Wednesday. Like I said, 85 plus episodes, and we had to pull out our favorite one. we had to pull an episode that aligns with our mission here to secure the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. And that's really the impetus behind every single episode that we do and behind this project in general. But there are just some episodes where the stories that are shared and the projects that we talk about would just hit home and remind us all, whether we're industrial employers or whether we're educators, remind us why we wake up every day and do what we do. And it's all in the mission of securing the American dream for our students, for our employees, for people who will someday be our students and our employees. And the episode that really stood out the most in this, our episode on job training and corrections, an episode that we did in partnership with the Department of Corrections and Western Technical College, talking about their training program in electromechanical technology for inmates who are incarcerated in Western Wisconsin, and the ability for these individuals to gain hands-on skills training, certifications, and college credentials, and then be released and get a job before they're released, and to reduce recidivism rates, and to help those individuals achieve the American dream for themselves, for their families, for generations to come. And so we have a couple of clips here from both individuals who participated with us on that webinar. Enjoy.
These guys are excited to have these opportunities. They love the classes. They love working once they're done. The one guy I have who works in maintenance, I'm serious. He has saved our maintenance department literally thousands of dollars by what he knows how to do from this one program, the electromechanical, and these 12 credits. And you put MSSC along with that and some of this other stuff, which he's moving through quickly. They love this and they stick to it. They work together. They join those student kind of groups and, ask questions and work on projects together. And it's just an amazing thing to see a bunch of grown men who you don't think of as students really coming together. And, you get a lot of hope that these guys are going to go out and they're going to fill a lot of needed positions and do it successfully.
This is their first taste of success in an educational environment. We had a student that was from our first cohort that we taught at Jackson who did just that. He was very comfortable with the instructor that we had teaching, and the instructor was teaching at the campus as well. So he enrolled in the electrical automation program, associate degree program at Western. It was at the time when COVID had started. So he released back to the Madison area, but was able to be a Western student because some of the things were happening virtually. He got permission from parole officer to come to La Crosse to do some of the labs. And now that he's established and is doing well as a student, our faculty has worked with him to get him connected in Madison. So he's continuing that education and moving towards his associate degree as a student now at Madison Area Technical College. So it's workforce, but it's also an opportunity for them to continue their education.
Is that not amazing? It's just an incredible story. We love hearing those stories. We love doing what we do. Thank you for joining us on our top 10 moments from Webinar Wednesday. I will share with you that we are looking to change up Webinar Wednesday a little bit starting in the new year. It won't be every Wednesday. We have loved doing this project with you, taking you on this journey with us. We will keep you updated on our future webinars, but we do have one final webinar of 2021. That is next week, Wednesday. Matt Kirkner will come on and share his predictions for technical education in 2022. We did this last year. We're going to do it again this year. We have an idea of what's to come in technical education, what technologies schools should be investing in, what trends they should be looking out for. And you definitely don't want to miss that as you plan for your programs for next year. For now, that is it for me. Thank you for joining us for Webinar Wednesday. We will see you next week.